Not too long ago, a certain PlayStation IP left an astrobot-shaped hole in the hearts of PSVR2 users. Well, I'm here to break down today whether or not Max Mustard can fill that astrobot-shaped hole in a lot of PSVR2 gamers' hearts. So before you go breaking out your old PSVR1 to replay Astrobot Rescue Mission, is Max Mustard a worthy platforming adventure that can go toe-to-toe with the likes of Sony's giants? While it might not have the brawn of a massive first-party Sony-funded studio, it does have the brains to create a very compelling 4-hour adventure with a load of gameplay variety, incredible visual design, and most importantly, a fun gameplay loop that makes you go just one more level. And ultimately, that's what makes Max Mustard so good. So, let's talk about it a little more in depth. First and foremost, if you're familiar with Max Mustard, let's tackle the PSVR2 centric nature of this review first. Is it a good PSVR2 port? Well, I'm happy to say that we've had a good winning streak here over on PSVR2 in terms of porting, because Max Mustard is yet another one that has some great attention to detail, looks fantastic, and runs flawlessly. From Into the Radius onto this, we're on a roll. Let's hope that the next release doesn't drop the ball. So yes, Max Mustard looks fantastic in the headset. It pops, it's vibrant, clarity is just fantastic. It's unreprojected in terms of its frame rate, so it's feeling buttery smooth here, and it also uses the haptics to great effect. Whether it's taking damage that makes your head rumble, to the vibration of your controllers when Max uses his jet boots, to pulling the trigger on a weapon that you get handed as the player in a similar Astrobot Rescue Mission style, so you can interact with the world as a player while you control Max. All of these utilize the PSVR2 features, and everything that you want to be implemented in a port like this is, I'm happy to say. So, it's a fantastic PSVR2 port, that is great, but is it a fun and good game to play, and does it pick up the mantle that Astrobot has left on the floor, unfortunately for us PSVR2 users? Let's find out. Max Mustard, in terms of gameplay, really isn't pushing the boat out completely for platformers in VR and out of VR. It's not doing anything exceptionally out there that's going to make you think this is so different and advanced compared to other ones. What it is doing, though, is refining its gameplay to make you never want to put it down once you pick it up. This is a properly well thought out, and even though a little bit by the books in terms of some things that are thrown at you, such an enjoyable platforming experience. They've taken one thing, one gameplay element, one genre, and refined it down to a T so that it works flawlessly. And my earlier comment about it not reinventing the wheel isn't really a criticism either. That's not what I'm trying to get at here. What I'm saying is that it doesn't really need to. It's simply really well built. And for us PSVR2 users, we don't really have much that can come close to this in terms of polish and how fun the game actually is. As you play through the game, there are 40 levels to complete, which can take anywhere between 3 to 4.5 hours or so, depending on if you're exploring and trying to save these mud puppies, I think they're called, that are essentially your objective to save throughout the game as they get captured by a big octopusy squid thing. It wastes no time throwing you into the action of the story, even though there isn't really much of a story outside of go and save these things. But that's all you really need for a game like this. You'll be darting through each of these levels, which feel a lot like older platformers, and also feel a lot like Astrobot levels, to be honest. You fight your way through enemies, and there are a fair few variations of the enemy types you'll be facing, whether they're ranged attacks, melee attacks, or attacks that you really just don't expect. But these are coupled with really good environmental design and environmental traps that get you to think on your feet and try and get Max out of sticky situations. A highlight for me was a level that takes place on kind of like a DJ world, where there's a backing track going, and every time it hits the beat, some blocks disappear and some reappear, meaning you'll have to dart between them to get through the level. And then once you get to the end of the level, to advance, you then have to set off different elements of the musical instruments, add instruments in, and rebuild the track. You can toggle these on and off. It's like being in GarageBand as a kid. I'm not gonna lie, this was just a really cool level that I properly enjoyed, and it's ingenious things like this that keep the gameplay fresh. Even though it's iterating upon itself as you go, it's adding in something new every time to make you want to see what's next and what's around the corner.
Oh, that's so cool. You ready? Yeah, adding some drum bits.
The normal platformer levels are also broken up in between by levels where you'll take on challenges as the player and not as Max, say shooting galleries or trying to get as many coins as possible, which does add a fair bit of variation in the levels you come across, and you can also dart into a shop to purchase upgrades as you go, so it's not just the same shtick all the time, which is very appreciated. You'll come across boss battles from time to time as well, usually at the end of each world you'll traverse. These are fairly on rails and honestly fit the style of normal platforming boss battles that you have to go up against, dodging their attacks and sending attacks straight back at them to take them down. But the boss designs are visually pleasing to look at, and as you progress through the game, especially towards the latter sections of it, each of the different gameplay elements that you've learned throughout your playtime will come together in quite a satisfying way. So, gotta say, even though the boss fights at some points at the start feel a little bit on rails and a little bit like it's quite hard to lose these, towards the end it becomes a bit more of a challenge and quite rewarding for you as a player, which I really enjoyed. As I mentioned before, you'll be given gadgets in the first person as well, so the game might hand you a gun to use which will fire projectiles, or say a hoover essentially, where you can suck up enemies and fire them at other enemies or objects around the world. This will reward you with coins that you will then use for upgrades to help out yourself and Max as you go along. This first person POV acts a bit like Astrobot as well, where you follow Max along from behind. It's never too jarring. I feel like I could put a pretty new person to VR in this and they'd feel pretty comfortable with it. So if you're new to VR and looking for a platforming experience, I would happily recommend Max Mustard to you. You're not really going to run into anything that's going to make you feel too sick at all. I've got to shout out the audio and music design team as well, because all the audio elements throughout the game world are spot on in terms of the noises enemies make when you kill them and when they attack you, and especially identifying enemies as you go throughout a level. They're all distinct in terms of their audio design. Their visual design is good as well, but it's their audio that stands out a lot of the time, ticking you off to where each one is. And also the music, which you're listening to right now, it's a pretty banger soundtrack, I'm not going to lie. Especially in the main theme, they knocked out the park on this one, so well done to the teams behind that. I think the main thing for me as a player was that this just reminded me how fun platforming games can be, especially in VR. The feeling of the world is such a kind of cute and happy one, and from the moment that I put on the headset to the very end of the game, I did not stop smiling. That's the biggest compliment I can give Max Mustard. It really captures that tone that you want out of a game like this. And although it might not reach completely for the heights of, say, Astrobot, it neither has the budget nor the manpower in the dev team, I don't think, compared to a studio like Asobi. And honestly, I cannot wait to see where this team goes in its future, because if they're making games like this now, which are utterly exceptional, they're going to be knocking it out the park going forward. But my verdict is, if you're looking for an Astrobot replacement, while this might not reach the heights that you remember Astrobot reaching, especially on the flat screen compared to this in VR, it's an absolutely wonderful time that's going to leave you happy and fulfilled as you go through. It's been a very good time for us PSVR2 users with games like this coming out, and I cannot recommend this one enough for you platforming fans. I'm not typically a platforming fan, but even I absolutely love this game. Anyway, thank you all for watching. I hope you did enjoy. Please let me know if you have any other questions about the game in the comment section below. Thank you to our patrons and YouTube members: Luke Bentley, Phil Irving, Hazit Mirza, Ace Gamer, Hippie Pickle, Jin007, A License to Chill, Sun WTF, Fat Controllers, The Game Cat, Andrew Ehrenreich, Jason Parker, Lamar Hall, Jordy Bansma, Lemon64K, Outcast VR, Prophecy777, and Gundy Gundy. Thank you all, and I'll see you all in the next one.